Hello, my name is Maria Paviour. I'm an occupational psychologist, a trainer, an author, a corporate and a life coach. And I've developed this plan called the ALP plan, or the Affective Leadership Plan. And in this little bit of film, I'm going to show you what it's all about and explain the basic principles behind it. Effective leadership is about understanding that everything I do is going to have an emotional effect on another person, and that I'm also going to be emotionally affected by anything that anyone else does. And if we can approach leadership understanding that basic, very simple principle, then that will lead us to look quite differently at the way that we behave at work with our peers and with our reports and with all of our colleagues and clients. So what I'm looking at here are the factors that drive emotional commitment at work. And that's a key part of affective leadership, because for leadership to be effective, it needs to behave in such a way that it creates true emotional commitment in others, that they feel totally emotionally committed. Now, this is really important because it goes beyond engagement. Engagement is something that I can have with a task without actually being in love with my organisation. What we're talking about here is emotional commitment, that I feel emotionally committed to the organisation for whom I work, emotionally committed to the team and the people that I work with, and emotionally committed to my leader. And these are the factors that make a difference to that, and I've put them onto a grid, as you can see. Okay, so they're the basics. But the grid also identifies how a lack of affective leadership can lead to negative results. And what I'm going to show you next is how this can create potential negative outcomes. So let's look at the possible negative results from a lack of affective leadership. So taking the first box, the current situation, the working day situation, and the emotional environment that people might be within. If that emotional structure is not affective, then it will result in a sense of insecurity, lack of trust, poor communication. And this will be expressed by the individuals so that their self-expression may be incongruent, insincere, it may be manipulative, fearful, could be even deceitful, guarded, or hostile. Now, when you look at that current situation, you can often see how gossip, rumour, innuendo and lies can thrive in an emotional environment that is not effective, where there is insecurity, lack of trust and poor communication. So taking it then to the forward pathway of the organisation. If your organisation's forward pathway is not effective, in other words, it's not responding to the emotional needs of the people in the organisation, then this can result in a sense of dissent, non-cohesion, disowning. And if you've ever been involved with trying to implement change and you've had people who are awkward and who won't support it, or who show negative attitudes towards the change, then you will probably know what I mean. Because this is often what happens when the forward pathway is not effective. It's not responding to the emotional needs of the individuals. And the way individuals can respond to this is demonstrated through potentially boredom, apathy, maybe even stress, and at the very extreme, it can result in mental health issues. People can end up feeling depressed or stressed in the extreme and having to have time off as a result of it. And that may be as a result of the overall picture, and particularly how they view themselves in the organisation with regards to that forward pathway. Now, it's really important to note that even with affective leadership, there may be negative results. And this is why the leader has to carry out a two-pronged approach to effective leadership. They have to be active and responsive. They have to respond actively so that they create the environment, create the approach to the forward pathway. And they have to be responsive by dealing with the individuals on an individual basis. Now, one of the things about leadership theory is it tends to have this view that if you apply this theory, it'll work. And what we're saying with effective leadership is we're dealing with people's emotions. There isn't an absolute when you're dealing with people's emotions. So what we're saying is you have to be prepared to deal individually with the issues that arise. You create it, and then you have to deal with the situations that come out of it. Because, as I say, everybody's emotional response is going to be different. And to be an affective leader, you have to be looking at how am I affecting the emotions of another person? And how is that person affecting the emotions of others around them, including myself? And how will I therefore handle that, respond to that, and take that forward positively? So now here you can see the same grid, but as you can see at the top, we're looking at the active behaviours and the responsive behaviours, and you can see how they fit into the grid. So the active behaviours are looking actively at the environment, current and future, and the responsive behaviours are looking at the individuals and how they respond to the current and the future environment. So let's just summarise the graph with all of the information on there so that you can see the current and the future, the active and the responsive. You can see how the leader has to model the right behaviours in the current situation, and how by modelling, when it isn't working or where it needs fixing, the leader needs to analyse and then work with the individuals cognitively, interrogatively. And then if you look at the future pathway, the leader needs to create the emotional future pathway for the individuals. And having done that, the leader can then orientate the individuals in terms of perspective and in terms of being adaptive. And if you get all of that right, you will go along the shaky wobbly path of effective leadership, because it is shaky and wobbly, because the fact is it is an emotional journey. But then everything in life is an emotional journey, and at least on this emotional journey, using this plan, you can make it an emotional journey of joy and positivity. So, most theories, as I say, of leadership are based on the concept that if the individual follows the process, it's going to work. Effective leadership works on the basis of emotions. And so how people feel affects their responses. And that is what this entire program is built on. It's built into this program is how to set up the approach to effective leadership and the solution to individual difficulties in making it work. And for this reason, because we build both of those in, we guarantee the program. I developed the ALP plan by building on the traditional and the established concepts in leadership, such as Hertzberg, Redin, Blanchard, Adair, Belbin, and many, many more, and combining what we already have established and accept with the new and most up-to-date research from authors and researchers such as Daniel Goleman, Martin Seligman, Philip Zimbardo, Brené Brown, Daniel Pink, Pamela Meyer, Mikolai Csikszentmihalyi, among others. And what I've done also is I've used models and strategies, some of which are quite new: transformational leadership, developments in transactional analysis, cognitive behavioural therapy, neurolinguistic programming, and resilience, among some. There are others too. And I suppose this whole process began more than 10 years ago. In 2002, I published a book which I'd started writing in 2000 called Changing Vampires into Angels. And that was a part of this view that I had that in organisations there are certain things that people won't talk about. And there's one 4-letter word that people won't use. It's the only one that I can remember, and it's love. And I found it frustrating that, although we are all motivated by love often more than anything else, we won't even admit to it in our working lives, which is the vast amount of time that we spend living and breathing. And when I speak to some people at work and I say to them, do they feel emotions at work? They often deny it, saying, no, they don't have any emotions at work. And if I say to them, have you felt angry at work? They go, oh, yeah, of course. And I have to remind them that anger is indeed an emotion. We tend to have got a strange idea about what emotional behaviour is and what it is not. And we also seem to have the view that to be emotional at work means to behave in a way that is unacceptable. Every one of us, every decision we make comes from our emotions. As Edward de Bono says, you're going to have an emotional reaction to this, so why don't you get it out there first? It might not be logical, but you need to get it out there. Otherwise, it actually impacts on everything you're trying to do. So I'm trying to drive forward this revolution in bringing effective leadership into the workplace and taking us all on a journey to joy. Because when we have that experience, it makes the world better for every single one of us, whether we are workers, whether we are peers, whether we are leaders, whether we are customers. We all feel better when we are surrounded and bathed in the joy of life, and that is absolutely possible with effective leadership. So join me on this crusade, and I'm afraid I haven't been able to tell you all of the detail about the plan, but you're welcome to join one of my free programs. I do run some free days on the ALP program, and you can find out much more there. So have a look on the internet and check out my website, www.isynergize.co.uk. And if you want to call me, then you can call me on my mobile. So go on the website and find my number, because I would love to speak to you if you've got any thoughts or views that you'd like to share, or if indeed you'd like to get involved in this emotional revolution too. I really look forward to speaking to you soon, and thank you very much for listening. I'm Maria Paviour. Goodbye.